flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is a North Star Award.
So we have some special guests with us tonight, one special guest in particular. So Hunter Burkholder, would you stand up? I'm going to say some nice things about you. First and foremost, his principal wrote me and said Hunter is one of the most kind-hearted students at Belmont Middle School, which is probably one of the best compliments anyone could give. He shows resiliency in his own personal life and strives to be the best person he can every day. He consistently treats classmates and staff with respect and patience, and his empathy is evident in all his relationships that he builds across all the grade levels. He contributes positively to our school culture and embodies what it really means to be a true grade. A clear example of Hunter's character and leadership occurred when one of his classmates this year became seriously ill. Recognizing the family's financial and emotional needs, Hunter independently came up with an idea for a fundraising plan. He organized the sale of handmade keychains and pins that I think he does with his grandmother to raise money for that student and her family. He recruited help from fellow students, Landon, who generously contributed supplies, but the idea and majority of supplies came from Hunter. He ensured there were multiple days of sales. When the fundraiser concluded, he donated 100% of the money raised to the student and her family. How much money did you end up raising, Hunter?
I have no clue.
It was right at $300.
Wow. Great.
Bravo.
Let Grandma take a picture.
It's a video, so.
All right. Hunter, thank you so much for doing that. I know that that family was not anticipating what had happened to them, and just for you to come up with that on your own and contribute all the money, and I know that had to come at some expense to you with the supplies. Thank you so much for doing that. I know it meant a lot, because we heard from the family. We were very thankful for everything all the students did, but you and your family in particular. I know your principal's here tonight. Do you have anything you want to add?
Just like I said in my narrative, we are just so proud of Hunter and his efforts. He kept myself and the rest of the administration team on task to make sure every morning we had those supplies. He was in the office picking them up and setting up his own little station to sell them. He sat through multiple lunch periods to make sure that kids had the opportunity to buy the keychains and pens. He was super active in that and really a go-getter with everything. We're just super impressed with Hunter. Wish we had classrooms full of him.
Hunter, do you have anything you'd like to say to people about generosity or just stepping up and taking charge when things happen?
No.
That's okay. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but we appreciate, you know what, sometimes it's the folks that don't need to be in front of people that do some of the best and greatest things. So thank you so much for taking that initiative and doing that. And thank you for
That was very kind.
If you guys want to go, you're more than welcome to. You're more welcome to stay. Thank you for helping too. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to do a program update next.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me do this real fast so I can get over my daughter's game. Just to start, thank you for allowing me to come in and present this information to you. We are doing some great things at the middle school, and I am always hyped up to talk about those great things. So to start, at the top of the paper that I gave you, it does just have our information for our checkpoints, both 1 and 2 for language arts, along with our cumulative language arts I learned from the 24-25 school year. Then it goes on to our math checkpoint data. For checkpoint 1, you're getting ready to take our second checkpoint for this year on Thursday, so that data we will have
Thursday afternoon. Then it also has the cumulative data for the 24-25 school year. As you can see across the board, in the grade levels, both in language arts and math, for the most part, we are above state average. Our teams are putting in a lot of work to make sure that they're doing remediation and working with our kids to improve their skill gaps. The one thing that we've talked about a lot at school with our teachers is we don't just focus on who's at proficiency and above proficiency. iLearn is a college and career readiness test, and we know that not all of our students are going to go that path. But we also want to acknowledge that they're building the learning in all of our kids. So if we look at our data that compare even the state average for below proficiency to ours, we have less students below proficiency than the state average, sometimes by up to 20% below that. So we look at as a whole. We don't just look at above and at proficiency, but we look at, are we growing the kids into the approaching proficiency category? Are we shrinking our number of kids that are below proficiency? And they're just doing great work, and they're working hard. They're looking at the data. We have all of our teachers looking at this data. So we test in homerooms, and our homeroom teachers are even looking at this data. So it could be a science teacher looking at this. How can I help my language arts and math people support these students in their education? And so we're using common language. We're looking at what vocabulary words our kids are going to see in the test. What kind of skills do they need in terms of just dragging and dropping, or what kind of technology skills do they need to be able to do well on the test? Looking at the different reading passages, the depth of knowledge, question types that students are going to look at. So it really, we are doing this as a whole team. It's not just the language arts and math teachers. It's all of us. These are all of our students. It's not just language arts teacher students. So we really are working hard last year and this year to increase our goals in percentages. So after we get past all of that, there are some new regulations coming down about remediation requirements for our students. So that's our new talk for this year, is how do we increase the remediation? So last year we built in times during our homeroom where we were remediating students. Now we're going to be looking at, all of our students are going to be taking an academic lab during our 5th period, which is our longest block of time. And during that academic lab, we'll be looking at math and language arts remediation. The regulations for that remediation follow the MTSS, which is a multi-tiered system of supports, and that is requiring us to have a certain number of students in grades. It also requires a certain time requirement, so we're working with that to make sure we're within those standards. So that is a way to make sure we're hitting everybody. That's anybody, we have to remediate anybody that's not at or above proficiency. So within that 5th period academic lab, we're also going to do our high ability enrichment. So our students will participate in different activities. We have drone kits that the kids work with. We bought some Lego kits that the kids are working with. We have coding. We have art. We have stress and anxiety relief that our students or gym teacher works with them on. How do I reduce my stress? How do I reduce my anxiety? So it's really taking the student and looking at them whole picture. So that's part of our high ability enrichment that we'll take during that 5th period academic lab. We're also looking at not just iLearn data, but looking at how do we make sure we're showing growth in our students outside of iLearn. So iLearn does a great job telling us who's at and above proficiency, who's approaching proficiency, and who's below proficiency, but sometimes it doesn't show us great data on how our students are growing. So we're looking at what can we use to make sure we're praising all of our kids for the growth in the work that they're putting in, and how can we show that in numbers to show them and to keep track of ourselves. So that's in part of the remediation process, that's what we're doing during our flex days and our PD time after on Wednesdays from that 2:30 to 3:30. those are all things that we're looking at during that PD time. During our flex days, we are using that for vertical articulation, so our departments are meeting 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and looking at the different skills that are taught in each of those grade bands. What are some core standards that our teachers need to make sure that, like 6th grade, here's the foundational standards for 7th grade and then for 8th grade. We have done in the past some work with the high school. We would like to incorporate some of that again this year during those flex days to make sure that we're preparing our kids for what they're going to have to do in high school. We also, as part of our flex days, I also build in breakout sessions for our teachers, and some of those breakout sessions can be mindfulness. Some of it's just reading in the library, a quiet place to read. Some of it's physical activity. I really believe in them being treated well too, and taking some time for themselves to fill their cup back up, because they can't do this work without being allowed to fill their cup back up. And I really want them to make sure they're taking care of themselves. So that's part of what we do during our flex day. We have about 45 minutes breakout session, potentially an hour and a half, to really just work on something that interests them, that's passionate about them. We have a great group of teachers willing to lead that. So we have some weight room, we have just some general cardio. The art teacher runs some painting and drawing sessions that she does. So just a lot of opportunities for our staff to also fill their cup back up. We continue with PBIS in the district and specifically at the middle school. We had one right before Christmas break where we went swimming at the high school and the kids loved it. We also do things just as a whole school. So in the fall, we did a kickball tournament, homerooms versus homerooms. That was very competitive, and kids took that very seriously. It got a little crazy at the end because it came down to we were out of time and we had to call a tie, and nobody liked that. It was intense. We did our first PEP session where we recognized our fall, winter, and then our soon-to-be spring athletes. We also played some minute-to-win games that were super fun. We had the staff versus kids from each grade level that participated in that, and that was super fun. So we really enjoy just being able to do some fun things with the kids. On Fridays, we do Fun Fridays. Any student that doesn't have an F or a D or an F and no office referrals or lunch detentions, for a 2-week time frame, we let them come to the activity center and participate in Just Dance. We do dodgeball and volleyball in the gym. And then we also have board games and bingo in the cafeteria. So students can pick where they want to go, and then they can just go and participate in that fun activity for that Friday. So just some more incentives for our kids doing great things every other week. We will continue with Bring Change to Mind this year, which I think I presented that last year. That's just bringing mental health awareness to students, and it's student-led. So myself and the guidance counselor kind of facilitate meetings, but it's really truly led by our students. With that, Alive and Well was in for our 6th grade group. There's kind of a breakdown of what they went through, but that's really looking at the whole child and making sure that they're making good decisions. They also talk about using technology appropriately and just making sure that our students are making good decisions. We did some Why Try training in the fall for our special ed staff. They're starting to implement that in our SEL groups this school year. We will continue to have our 8th grade. We'll have parents come in for 8th grade graduation and award ceremony this spring. Our 8th grade students participated in JobSpark in the fall, which I don't know if any of you have been to JobSpark, but it's this amazing opportunity for our kids to go, and they get to do hands-on activities that teach them or show them what they're going to be doing in different career paths. I was able to go last year, and one of them, like AEP was there, and so like kids could work on transformers, and like they had the EMS there and they could work on all of that. I think Ivy Tech was there where they could do some like actual chest compressions and like IVs, and they have culinary, like just all of the things. This year they had cosmetology, which I do not believe they were there the year that I went, but kids could get like tinsel braided in their hair and they could see all the fun things. So it's just a great opportunity for our 8th grade students. We also this year went to iExplore Day at Ivy Tech. Our 8th grade students that are participating in PCC in the fall went, and that really is just an opportunity for them to explore all of the different bachelor or associate programs that they have at Ivy Tech. So Ivy Tech shows them the different career paths that they could pursue on campus with them. Again, great opportunity for our kids just to see like there is something local that they can do, so if they don't feel like they have the financial support to go to one of the bigger colleges, this is something that's close to home and still has great programs for the students to participate in. We are kicking off our fundraiser in January, and then that Day of Awesome will be in May. Also a super awesome day if you are available to come and just watch the people that we partner with for that fundraiser bring in bounce houses and hula hoop contests and limbo contests. It's just like amazing day for the kids to participate in and have some fun. Lastly, and I know I'm going through this super fast, I apologize, but it's all on the paper in front of you. Lastly, just to talk about Hunter and the amazing work that he did. We have an amazing North Adams community. They were able to, between all 3 schools and staff, we were able to raise $2,500 for the family. So we had a student who, I'm not sure if Kim kind of gave updates through the course, but we had a student who went home on a Wednesday. By that following Tuesday, she was life flighted to Riley. So just super scary experience for the family, and with the help of staff and the students and parents, we were able to raise those funds, and Hunter was a big part of just the students getting them involved. So it was just a really neat experience. I know we've had a situation in the past where we've raised funds for other people, but we just truly have a great community. We have a great North Adams community, and super proud of our students at Belmont and how they stepped up and pitched in for raising funds for the family. It was awesome. We have great kids. They do great things. Any questions for me? Again, I know that's super fast. I went through a lot.
I don't really have any questions. This is all fantastic, but
Yeah.
also the point of identifying, recognizing staff and holding them up as well, because that's extremely important. As you said, their cup's empty, and they need to be filled frequently. So kudos for that too.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember what it's like to, those are long days. They do a lot for us, so. Yeah. Thank you again for letting me come in and present this.
Did that go great?
Thank you.
All right, so we are at public comment on agenda items. And if none, we can move on. So this being our January meeting, we have the organization of the school board as our first item up on the agenda. Are there any, well, I guess we'll decide how we want to do it. If we want to go through position by position, probably.
I like the motion to keep it. Okay.
That works too, if that's. Is there a second or any other? Okay. Any other nominations or anything? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on that to keep things as they are. So we had I guess a motion by Joel, seconded by Wiley, to retain the current officers in their positions. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Yes, yes, thank you, Michelle. So president remains myself, vice president is Michelle Stimson, secretary is Dave Hill, and assistant secretary is Jill Colplager. Next item is the appointment of the treasurer and deputy treasurer. Currently in those roles, Beth Quinn is the treasurer and Lori Balmer is the deputy treasurer.
Motion to keep those positions as first.
Okay.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Wiley to retain Beth and Lori in their current roles as treasurer and deputy treasurer. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Appointment of board meeting recorder. It's Lori, and we're gonna just really hope she agrees today.
No choice.
I'll make a motion that we keep the recorder as is current.
Okay, motion by Michelle, is there a second? Second by Joel. Motion by Michelle, second by Joel to retain Lori Balmer as recorder for the school board meetings. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is the appointment of our legislative liaison, which is Wiley Sirk currently.
Keep that as.
Okay, motion by Joel, seconded by Michelle. Okay, motion by Joel, seconded by Michelle to retain Wiley as the legislative liaison. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is our school attorney, currently Mr. Scott Ainsworth.
You didn't bring your hat this year.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Wiley to approve, retain Scott in his current role as school attorney. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is the appointment of the Adams County Redevelopment Commission representative. Currently it's Dave Hill.
I'll make a motion to retain this
Dave?
position.
Okay, motion by Wiley, seconded by Joel. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Joel to retain Dave in his position with the Adams County Redevelopment Commission representative. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is the establishment of our meeting date and time. Our current meeting is on the second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m.
Make a motion to keep that as is.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Michelle, second by Wiley, to continue to have our meetings on the second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. We're gonna get through these.
Nothing competition.
I know. Next is the salary of the board members. So the law sets it at a maximum of $2,000. There is a per diem that we could choose to add. Historically, we have not done that. So any thoughts on retaining the same or making adjustments?
Make a motion to keep that as is.
Okay.
I'll second that too.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Wiley to establish a salary for the board at $2,000 with no per diem. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is the SEBT trustee appointments. We have Craig Moore for North Adams Teacher Association and Kim Hyatt as the administrative representative.
Make a motion to
Retain. Okay. Motion by Wiley, is there a second? Second by Jill. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Jill to continue with Craig Moore for Nada and Kim for the administrative representative for the SEBT trust appointments. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. All right, so we will close the current meeting and open the finance meeting. Can we throw it at you?
I call the 2025 North Adams Community School Board Finance meeting to order. There you go. So the first order of business is to elect the president and elect a secretary. So right now, the current one is Dave Hill as the president. And so is there any nominations for president of the finance committee? Dave Hill.
I make a motion to retain the president as is.
A second. Okay. All in favor to keep Dave Hill as president? Say aye.
Aye.
Same sign as opposed. That's 6-0. So now the order is to get a secretary, and Darlene is the secretary. So is there any Nominees for secretary.
I make a motion to retain secretary as is.
I'll second that.
So we have motion, thank you, for Darlene to be secretary, and also second by Stacy. All in favor of Darlene being secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign as opposed. Passes 6-0. And we're gonna review some finance stuff.
Fun stuff.
In 2025, North Adams Community Schools earned a total of $252,828.88 in interest income in our operation fund account, and we also earned a total of $116,580.38 in interest on our construction bonds and rainy day fund.
Any questions on that? Okay, we have some slides in a packet. These are the things that are legislatively required for us to go over, that the distress, something called the DUAD, distressed unit, board puts out, and that we are supposed to go through with you every year. So the first, and this is a public website, anybody can go and look and poke around if that's what you want. The first table you have there is average daily membership. So we've been in a declining enrollment. The good news is in the last 2 years, we have slowed down that decline significantly. I think for us, Adams County's population is decreasing overall. The other 2 schools are fairly stagnant in their enrollment. With the advent of vouchers, it impacted us more so because we have most of those private schools here within our boundaries. So I'm hoping at this point the impact on the vouchers is, I'm hoping, will stagnate, and then we can just kind of work from there. Again, basic tuition support last year from the state was just over $7,600 per student, and that's a student that is not getting extra money because of a special needs eligibility or a CTE enrollment or high ability or something like that. This year last year it was just over $7,300. This year it's over $7,600. So every student brings in quite a bit of money, but it takes quite a bit of money to educate them as well. The next slide is fund balances. So that's basically how much cash we maintain in each of our different funds. And these charts are really confusing because they have every kind of fund from before the state consolidated, things like capital projects and general fund. But the big ones you need to look at are education, operations, rainy day, debt service. Those are the 4 big ones we operate on now. So you see some of those, this is a bar graph, you see a few of the bars dipping below the baseline. Those are our federal monies, federal funds, and our federal funds are, for the most part, all our big grants, and they work on a reimbursement model. So we are almost always waiting on a reimbursement. So that's why that looks like it's in the negative. It is in the negative in the moment, but you're going to get reimbursed for it. It's just a long process. And it's they're rolling grants, as Nicole will tell you. It never ends. Never ends. You do see a bit of a jump in rainy day from 23 to 24. If you remember, we transferred $1 million between education and operations because when we were redoing our budget, we needed to make sure that our budget was going to reflect what was optimal for us and what we were asking for. That money had already been earmarked to do some capital projects with and some different things here on campus. And so we have already spent $400,000 of that on different projects in 24, and we have another $600,000 we've already spent or have earmarked in 25 for some different projects that were already on the books, whether it's water heaters or parking lot resurfacing or whatever the case is. Education fund, that's the darker orange. One thing that they did redo this DUAB website, and it has a lot more detail now. So before, we had no idea necessarily all the monies they were pulling from and what funds they were talking about. Now they have little charts that you can click on. And so we did find out that some of the monies that are included in ours are like our Healthy Families deposits and receipts and expenditures, as well as Adams Wells, because we're LEA for both of them. So that was interesting to go through all the different fund lines that they were included and have to figure out what a couple of them were, because they don't label anything the way we label them. And so we learned a lot.
That also distorts how we.
It does.
Our district.
It does. You're right, it does. Education fund in the last year, in 2024 in particular, looks healthier than it's probably going to remain, because we were able to take a lot of pressure off with our On My Way Pre-K and CCDF vouchers to help pay for the expenditures from our pre-K and child care. You know, we've talked about how those have been slashed. Slashed is probably not the right word, cut out almost entirely as the year goes on. Basically, no one else is able to get a voucher and haven't for some number of months now, and those vouchers have been cut in half, and I would say more than cut in half, because some people's amounts are first, we can't really figure out why some of them are being reduced the way they are, but basically child care and pre-K is no longer can we expect to be funded probably from the federal government or from the state government. I know there's, Wiley may talk about this, there's some bills being introduced to try to provide some tax credits, I think, to help offset the expense of child care. But I don't think that we can expect that On My Way and CCDF is going to continue as it has.
Okay. Situation you're talking about.
I don't think it will. It'll help the families maybe,
Yeah.
not the
Which
providers.
is important too.
Yes. So some of the things you also see in debt service, we did add a GO bond and lease bond in the last couple of years, so there's some fluctuation there. We also had our VIVA, our pension severance bond come off. We paid for it at the end of 2020, in between 2023, 2024, somewhere in there. So that there's some fluctuation there, but nothing that I would say is remarkable. We are trying to be conservative again in anticipation that property taxes are going to continue to be impacted and revised at the state level. Going on to the next slide. So this slide shows an annual comparison between how much money we brought in, our revenue, and how much money we expended. The horizontal lines under each year show you what the overall, that means all of our funds, not just education or operations, it's everything together, shows our cash balance as a district. And then the deficit surplus is just basically the difference between the green and blue bars for each year. So the last 3 years, I would say we've never really truly spent more than we brought in. There's probably things like, again, we have our LEAs included in there. We have some bond payments that happened in different times, or we got bond money or bonds sold. But the last 3 years, we have had a stronger revenue than expenses, and our cash balances have slightly grew, again, in anticipation and knowing what's coming with our pre-K monies coming probably back to education fund, still wanting to try to give raises, trying to cover the shortfall with curricular fees that continues to happen, try to cover what deficits we may experience with property tax reform. I'm glad that we have built those cash balances a little. Again, they're not exorbitant. They're certainly largely within a target that is considered appropriate, but that's going to start getting eaten away, just because we're all, in every facet of life, I think, feeling the need to tighten belts, and we will be no different. Luckily, we're in a situation, as opposed to other districts I talk to every week, that some of them are really going to struggle in the next few years financially. So we are blessed to have some of that build up. The next slide is our fund balances as a percent of expenditures. So when we started working with Stifel, Chad Blacklock really talked to Beth and I about targets for this percent of expenditures. Your cash balance is what they're meaning. How much money do you save as compared to how much money you're spending each year? And this is, again, that emergency fund, basically, just in case things don't go the way you plan. And so our cash balance target for education fund, it had been 12% when we started working with him 3 or 4 years ago. We have since raised that to 20% just because of what all is happening around the state. And so, as you can see right now, we are healthy. We are healthier than that. We have given some decent raises compared to our revenue and enrollment the last few years. So again, I expect we won't continue to hold on to that amount. And again, having to pay for several more things like curricular fees and pre-K and child care from our education fund right now, that's going to not continue to accrue the way it is. In operations, our target annually is around 25%. As you can see, at the end of 24, we were hovering just above that. And operations fund is going to get hit too, again, as I've explained, I think, at different times in the past. For several reasons, we are weathering the operations storm better than some districts, which is a blessing, but we are also using that to help offset some of our struggles with education fund. And so it's going to be a balancing act. But we have it to balance, so that's a good place to be, I guess. The final one is a chart that just shows you revenue from the different types. And so federal revenue is kind of that tan, yellowish color. And as you can see, federal dollars after the advent of ESSER in 21, 22, and things just, again, slowly as a reimbursement. So we, even into 23, we're still being reimbursed for some things. It's kind of stagnated. I can tell you actually what's happening is kind of going down. Every year we are experiencing fairly decent cuts in our title grants, which is a big part of what funds a lot of our PD, our education for our students who have different needs or struggles. I know like Title I is how we help many of our elementary students who need extra remediation, and I think we've lost $85,000 in the last 3 years from that grant, which might not sound like a lot in the big picture of a multi-million-dollar budget, but when you're talking about how many staff we're paying through that and how many kids we're trying to serve through that, that's a big cut. So Nicole is having to, and Renee at the elementary, get creative and adjust annually about how we're meeting those needs and how we're staffing it, and that's probably going to continue. We keep being told that some of these grants aren't going to be pulled completely, but certainly we're seeing a reduction. Title II is the same thing. We continue to every year see a reduction, and that's what pays for PD for the most part, professional development, but also high ability, some of those kinds of things that we do for teachers. Our state revenue went up after 22, so there was a pretty big jump from 22 to 23, and then a little bit of stagnation. It's kind of stagnated right now, so we're hoping maybe there'll be some new monies at the biennium. Don't know. I guess I did see the fiscal report came out, and it looks like the Medicaid shortfall was not as significant as they were anticipating, and the loss of revenue for the state didn't happen like they thought, so I'm hoping that continues. Local tax revenue is a fairly stagnant tax revenue for us, although as I've talked to you about some of the changes being talked about at the state level, we might be talking about local tax a lot more in coming years. That's not been something we've ever taken advantage of, local income tax as a school system. Other systems have, and they disallowed it last year, but now it's back on the table as something potentially schools can use to try to offset what I anticipate will be some further reductions in state monies. I'm sure you can talk about more like that, about that in the legislative stuff, but who knows?
Well, today, I can't remember the district here in Indiana that it was shared on. I was on a webinar Zoom with the state school board, and they're wanting a new high school, but they're looking to close 2 and build a new one. But they're approaching their county to be a part of the project, which That's kind of a new twist. I don't know.
I think it's Vigo County,
Is it? Yeah.
to try to take advantage of that lit. I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, so, I don't know, maybe that might be a future to come type strategy, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know if that is part of that push to have those oversight councils where there's a county board who really has oversight of the school district,
Yeah.
at least financially.
And that would probably open the door towards that.
I'm not sure if they're looking, I actually taught in Terre Haute, Vigo County, my first year out of school, and so they have North and South Vigo, which are the big schools in Terre Haute, and there's West Vigo, which is the little country school over by the Illinois border. So I'm thinking they're looking at consolidation, potentially, or at least consolidating West Vigo with one of the others, I think is what I read, but I'm not sure.
So,
Any questions or anything? Well, adjourn the financial meeting is adjourned.
Okay. We will reconvene the regular board meeting, and we are at consensus items.
Want to wish Terry Free, who has been a longtime custodian at the middle school. Terry is one of those guys that I think he could and should stand up as an example to so many of our kids on how to persevere through trials. Terry does have some orthopedic issues, and he actually has some prosthetic legs, and he broke his femur, and so wasn't able to use his prosthetic. So he's taken some time off to heal for a while, but again, he works crazy hard and does a great job for us. We wish him the best and wish him a fast recovery. So he can
if
get
you
back.
really didn't know him, you wouldn't know
No.
of his condition.
No, yeah. I went to high school with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else right now.
Okay.
As far as consensus items.
So any questions, comments, or a motion to approve the consensus items?
Make a motion to approve the consensus items as presented.
Okay, motion by Michelle, seconded by Jill. Motion by Michelle, seconded by Jill to approve the consensus items as presented. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0.
So we did want to take a break. We have a special guest with us this evening, now that he's official. I would like to ask our high school athletic director, Aaron Baker, and our newly hired high school football coach, Blake Blaker. He can talk about the name. That's usually how he leads off. To introduce himself to everyone and say hello to the community.
Okay, so we went through a pretty lengthy process trying to find a new football coach. Interviewed, I think, 5 or 6 different people, and Blake just kept sticking out, and we kept coming back to him and thinking, man, this is what we're going to need for our program. And so we landed on Blake, and we offered it to him, and he was excited to join Belmont, and I think he's ready to go. So. Blake Baker. Yeah, so that is the name. Parents blessed me with that one. It's one that you definitely have to be careful with because people don't forget it. So, yeah, I just want to say I'm really, really thankful, really appreciative. For anybody that kind of knows my story, knows my background, me and my family kind of went through a lot this last year, and I actually thought that I was going to have to step away from coaching maybe. And so just kind of by the grace of God, Belmont, kind of all the stars aligned. I was teaching social studies job opens up. I was a head football coach, and football coach job opens up. So kind of all those stars aligned. I'm really thankful to be here. I'm really excited to get going. Everybody that I've met, everybody that I've come in contact with has been great. So far, all my interactions in the community have been great. So, like I said, I'm really appreciative, really thankful. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get things going, excited to get things changed. I hope that the kids are excited. Right now, we're we're kind of compiling a good coaching staff, a coaching staff that I think is really solid, cares about kids, cares about Belmont football, and wants to see it be successful. So we're going to keep building on that, and we'll see where the spring takes us in the summer, and we'll just kind of domino effect it in the next fall. So, but yeah, I'm really thankful to be here. Appreciate it. Like I said, I want to thank Mr. Baker. Ms. Kate Todd has been amazing so far. So I got to meet some guys in the social studies department the other day, so they're really great. So like I said, it's been an awesome experience so far, and it's just now starting. So.
Do you have like a top 5 things on your coaching philosophy or kid philosophy that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when we're gonna do like an official meet and greet, get the parents and everyone like that together. But just some things that I'll say is, one, I really, really believe that we are going to change things. And I really feel like one thing that people need to know in this community, one thing that you guys need to know, is that I am 100% in. I'm not the type of guy that, you go to the pool and he just kind of sticks a toe in. I'm the cannonball in the deep end kind of guy. So I'm all in. We will change it. We're going to change the attitudes. We're going to change the way that we mentally approach things. We're going to get kids in the weight room. We're going to be strong. We're going to be big. We're going to recruit kids. We're going to make them fall in love with football. But one thing that I really pride myself on, one thing that I really try to do is I try to make better than just good football players. One thing that I really care about in my experience with football, which is a long, boring story, but football has really changed my life. Football has really saved my life. And so one thing that I really want to make sure is when a kid leaves Belmont, he is not only going to be a better football player, but he's going to be a good husband, he's going to be a good son, he's going to be a good father one day, he's going to be a good person in the community. And so one thing that everybody is probably going to hear me say 1,000 different times is how you do one thing is how you do everything. I really, really believe in that. I grew up in a military household. My dad used to say that over and over and over again. And so that's one thing that I really believe in. And I think if we can get our kids to be great and try their hardest at every single thing they do, whether it's turning in an assignment, taking care of their siblings, whatever it is, it's going to translate onto a football field. So yeah, that's where we'll start. Like I said, I'm excited to get in the building, excited to start building relationships with kids, and kind of get going. So.
Well, we're excited for you to be here.
Yes, very much so.
Any other questions for me or anything like that? I'm going to try making the wrestling meet tonight, so I'm a throwback night. I'm going to see the old jerseys and all that stuff. So if there's no questions, I'm going to get scooting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
Nice meeting
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, I appreciate it so much.
Excited to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Person I've been emailing back and forth 1,000 times. No. Oh, I thought you were the HR lady.
Nope, she's here. I think she's here.
Boy and girl. Jack. Haley.
I think we might need a break before we go into the next one. So next item on the agenda is our policy update.
Well, I tried to go through and make it a little easier. My third Scott on this. So if you look at your cover page, I did go through and kind of color code my recommendations on things that there were choices with them. Some of them are pretty easy. I will say, once you look at 1422, for example, you look at 3122 and 4122. It's just a difference of who. And honestly, those are very similar to 2260.01 and 2266.2. So a lot of it is just the anti-harassment. So it's just, again, get it done. So on an easy place to start is the first group on the rescinded policies and the technical corrections. My recommendation would be to accept those and move on to to the things that we have to have more discussion.
I think that's fine. Do we need to vote on these now? Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the policies that are being rescinded and those with technical corrections as noted?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Joel. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Joel. Would it help to do the policy numbers, or you don't need to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We've got them divided on the agenda.
Okay, to approve the rescinded policies and the technical corrections as noted. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Okay, so the revisions.
Okay, so that first one's the chunk. It's all the non-discrimination. So one of the first questions that we had to decide on page 64, there was a choice whether you wanted to include obscene gestures as part of inappropriate behaviors that could be construed as misconduct that rose to the level of harassment or discriminatory acts. My recommendation is yes on that. It certainly can be. Certainly we can still use discretion depending on age, depending on what the actual obscene gesture is, but it needs to be included so that, because there are some that certainly give rise to that. Page 66, and again, Scott, please type in if you have a certain other. I recommended to not choose that option because while we do have employee assistance plans, it is not always extremely explicit or well developed, and I want to make sure that we have some of the options that if we had it in policy, it's offering. I'm not sure that we could say yes if you wanted it in there. We do have employee assistance programs. I just don't know, again, sometimes it varies on what that's available through our insurance and things like that. Page 67 had an option of disallowing finding what they call genetic information about someone by basically doing a record search online, genealogy stuff. I assume some of this is basically just trying to find past things, looking at if there could be anything that's a disability by going through social media or something like that. I don't see the need to disallow it. It's nothing to do anyway. If you want it, you can. I just don't see the need to have it in there unless Scott sees a bigger reason. Page 68, we do currently through SCBT have a wellness program, but I didn't want to include that as an option because that might not always be an option. So it's great when we do. I don't want it required that we have it, however. Page 68 to 69 just lists the compliance officers. Right now, again, we've kind of changed things up. Scott Miller takes care of usually our classified staff if there's any things that fall in that level. And then I am taking over for student and certified staff. And they recommend you have a male and a female just to try to offset different circumstances anyway. Me being superintendent is not always the best option, but in our current situation, being a small 3A, it's kind of, we got to wear a lot of hats. So there are also some verbiage in there. If I would ever be a subject of one of these complaints, then there's things where it would go to Scott Ainsworth as board counsel, or some of the complaints might go to Stacy as board president to process, so that I would be taken out as being a compliance officer. They also want that someone is over the compliance officer. Usually one has ultimate say. So I recommended that I, as superintendent, be the person that if Scott were working on something, that I would be the ultimate say. For example, if as long as I was not involved in it. Page 70. The compliance officer may delegate specific duties. There's a lot of steps in having to conduct a Title IX investigation. for example, or an OCR investigation, there are often will be times that you'll want to delegate that someone investigate something or complete an interview or do something along those lines. We already publish annually. Scott, again, on page 70, you can read that. My take on that was we already put it on the website. I don't know if there's a need to, if they're talking about republishing it annually. I just thought it was kind of redundant. We include it in the handbooks because that's what we have every year that I can guarantee it will be available in some form written. I recommended that the superintendent is over the compliance officers and then the board attorney if the superintendent is a complainant. I did not see the need to mandate we use this verbiage just because it can change in the CBA and they don't necessarily change at the same time, but I don't know if you have a particular thought. We have non-discriminatory language in the collective bargaining agreement. I also did not necessarily want a policy that referenced particular forms. Sometimes those forms are archaic, they're not what we use, they're hard copy, they don't always filter well, they're not digital, so it's fine that we use something like that, but I didn't want them referenced specifically. There's often times where we had to choose how long someone had in our organization to respond to a complaint. So there's lots of steps in these. So Neola recommended that you give 2 business days for the compliance officer, just basically to respond initially. That's to say, I received your complaint and I am working through it. Then starting on page 74, I felt we needed to have an opportunity for informal resolution. The last thing we want to do is have to go through a formal resolution process on every item if there's an opportunity for informal resolution. At times, depending upon, I hate to say the size or maybe the depth or the breadth of the circumstance, I said I thought it was okay for the compliance officer to be the investigator and decision maker. There are times where that would not be appropriate. I don't know if Scott has.
Nature of the scenario.
And that kind of goes into the next thing. There are times we may want to contract with a third-party independent because, again, the breadth of the situation, the intensity of the complaint, sometimes who's involved in the complaint, and the fear of bias. And there's lots of school systems that may do that in different situations just to try to, again, alleviate some concerns for bias. Also, 10 business days for evaluation and 20 business days for investigation were what I recommended. I don't know if Scott has any other.
Sufficient for what we'd be looking
And then there's the opportunity, if we needed longer, and I misquoted that should be green, we can always, the investigator can always ask the superintendent and inform the involved parties. Then moving to page 74, some more. The appeal decision has to be given within 10 days. I did not choose to check the extra protections for the impedance of evidence presentation. Basically, in the new Title IX and some of those, and again, this is Scott, maybe this is where I'd appreciate yours, that there is, it used to be you could keep the parties involved who may wage a complaint, for example, or witnesses to a situation, try to keep them anonymous as possible. The new law is not as protective of those folks as it had been. And so while it says we can, and we can try to keep anonymity and confidentiality and those things, we can't do so if it impedes either side from gathering information.
Nothing worse than not being able to contact witnesses against you.
So would you recommend a yes on that option on page 74 about after the confidentiality one?
No, I think we're fine.
Okay. And again, we have an informal resolution process, so that choice got checked. On to page 77, that was the actual informal resolution language, that's just an inclusion of it. Page 78, again, Scott, I'll defer to you, but there is a point in some of these, as you can see, this is a very lengthy, tedious process. I think it's kind of up to you how much of an appeals process you want to offer.
I wouldn't go overboard.
We've already done a lot in some situations. So I did not check that. I also did not check to let the complainant know exactly what the respondent's discipline was. They have some rights, depending on the situation, to know that, but when you're getting into an employee situation, that could be going into its own legal matter.
I'm not a fan
No.
of trying to share the punishment, just acknowledgement that it was recognized.
Yes. So if there is an appeal of the determination, then they also have 10 business days to file that appeal. Page 79, my recommendation is that the complainant cannot challenge the discipline that is given the respondent. That's what it is. And if you have a civil matter that you want to file a legal proceeding against and seek other, but as far as what we might do to an employee, for example, well,
We don't give people a chance to get their pound of flesh.
no, yeah. Let's see, on to page 80, 5 business days to address the appeals of the determination. My recommendation on page 81, that if there is a third-party decision maker, that decision is final and there's not another appeal process. That's an option.
I mean, we're talking, all the appeals stay within our, it's not like we're blocking them from trying to go to court or anything like that. So internally, if we've got an external person or other, we're trying to go beyond that.
Page 82 just listed the different discipline options that could happen, primarily for staff. I just recommended we checked all of them, not that you would do all of them in any particular situation, but it's an option depending upon what the situation requires. Page 84, while I certainly want to support training for anyone that would be in these compliance officers, investigators, decision makers positions, that training is not always timely when different positions change up. So I didn't want something that really nailed us down on having to have it immediate. I have through, just for your information, through a kind of a contract we have with Church Hill and Antrim, they've given us a few hour training for these different positions that are virtual. So we have, it's basic, but if you really want the in-depth one, you're going to travel to a different state for a multi-day conference for what is the nationally recognized best of the best one, and so that's just not always right there just because someone left their job and somebody else had to take over. But again, I'm fine with saying we will get some kind of training. I just don't want to pin us down too much on what that will look like. So I don't know, Scott, if you have
Flexibility.
and then page 85, I checked that we needed some language in there that the board has discretion in interpretation of some of these processes and some of these definitions. And again, this is meaty in one policy. I don't know how many pages that one policy was, and then you multiply it by 6 or 7, and they're almost restatements with different focus audiences.
You do that for
It's a 7. I live with an 8-year-old. I hear it every day. No, I didn't, but I'm glad you brought it up. So is there any discussion or questions? Again, those policies, those 3 policies in that segment are pretty much just repeats of each other with the same choices in the same spots. Okay, so if you wanted to vote on those three policies, again, I think it's the same, it's a repeat of the same information, almost verbatim.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve policy 1422, 3122, and 4122?
I'll make a motion to accept the policies as presented with the recommendations.
Motion by Michelle. Second by Joel. Motion by Michelle, seconded by Joel to approve policies 1422, 3122, and 4122 with all of the recommendations as noted. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0.
So then the next policy we have is 2260, and that is the non-discrimination and access to equal education opportunity. Very similar to what we just went through. I only had 3 things here that I really noted on page 157. I suggested, again, that we accept the listing of the operations director and superintendent as the compliance officers, and that info will be annually published in the handbooks. On page 164, the superintendent's decision is final. And then on page 168, 169, there's several bullet points, I think letter N on down, that are if you think you need more clarification on language that had been given. I did not feel we needed further ones unless Scott thinks some of those are better. So that's that one. If there's any questions on that one, it's very similar to, again, a lot of this one was taking out some of the gender references after February 2025's Dear Colleague letter from the U.S. Department of Ed. So there's a couple of years ago we put them all in, and now we're taking them all out. And that's just one of those law things.
So do you want us to vote on this policy?
I would say that
Okay.
one because there's some different stuff.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve 2260?
So moved.
Moved by Wiley, is there a second? Second by Dave. Motion by Wiley, second by Dave to approve policy 2260 with the corrections and revisions as noted. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0.
So kind of a subgroup of that is 2260.01, which is about section 504. Our compliance officer right now for section 504 is the middle school principal. And again, that information is published in the school handbooks. I, again, recommended against referencing this information in the collective bargaining agreement. We have some broad non-discrimination language, and I would say Employment Relations Board governs a lot of what your interactions and what needs to be with any employees that may fall under a 504. Page 180, again, compliance officer may collaborate with the board attorney before giving a final recommendation or ruling on a 504 discrimination claim before filing that final report. Superintendent's decision is final. Again, everyone always has the opportunity to go further to an OCR complaint if that's what they want to do. The office in Chicago is where we had always worked through for OCR. Now that office has been shut down and the new office is in Denver. So there's a switch of new address and office contact information. And same thing as in the prior one on page 186. I didn't think we needed all those additional bullet points to clarify or add to previous language.
Okay. Any questions or comments or motion to approve 2266? No, I went down too far.
I was going to say 2260.01.
0.01, thank you. Motion by Dave, second by Joel to approve 2260.01 with the revisions and changes as noted. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Approved, same sign. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is policy 2266.
This one is discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. Now, I will warn you, I just read a report today that there are 2 cases being heard right now at the U.S. Supreme Court on topics that have to do with this, so this law could very well be changed, or this policy could be changed based on what the Supreme Court outcome is, and this was the participation of transgender athletes in sports. So this has a little bit to do with that, not all of it. My initial recommendations on page 201 were to choose option 1, having no hearing, no formal hearing. On page 203, selecting the preponderance of evidence standard as opposed to, I was going to do this to myself. I'm going to have to find that page real quick. I forgot what the other verbiage is. I don't know if Scott has a preference. It's preponderance of evidence versus clear and convincing evidence standard.
What's the difference?
Okay. It's like taking steps. Preponderance is clear and convincing beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, okay.
So you paint a higher standard if you put it in here. What we're doing, I think preponderance is sufficient.
Okay.
And that's essentially most likely. You know, let's say somewhere in that 60 to 75%. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Thank you.
That's a way too simple.
No, but I got it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I usually. Page 204, I recommended option 2 just because it spelled out what it meant by disciplinary standards more so. Didn't know if Scott thought that was maybe getting too specific versus option 1, which pretty much just says you can discipline someone from a school standpoint who may show discrimination.
I'm okay with that.
And then page 205 is again just checking all, if this is a staff member who engaged in this misconduct, just everything under the sun that could be discipline for a staff member. It doesn't mean you do any of it, doesn't mean you do all of it. It just means these are the options.
So is there any questions or comments or a motion to approve 2266?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Jill,
I'll second.
second by Wiley. Motion by Jill, second by Wiley to approve policy 2266 with the changes as noted. All those in favor, must be saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0.
Okay, the next 3 policies, 1623, 3123, 4123, are just like the first 3 we did, where if you look at one, you look at them all. It's just one's about certified staff, one's about administrators, one's about classified staff. So this is non-discrimination for equal employment. So this is all about employees. I will say, I don't want to go through everything because pretty much the same choices that we had to make in the first 3 policies are the same choices you're making here.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, they would be the same questions we had earlier.
Okay. Any questions or comments or motion to approve? Motion by Joel, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Wiley. Motion by Joel, second by Wiley to approve policy 1623, 3123, and 4123 as with the, my gosh, my brain is like froze up. Yes, thank you. With the revisions as presented, all those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
You winning comment?
With that stuff.
Yeah, approved 6-0. Next one is 2262.
Okay, finally getting out of the non-discrimination stuff. This is the latchkey program that I wanted us to have in policy, just because we do have a child care now in addition to our relationship with Boys and Girls Club. The only thing here, just there's really not much to note, just it was needed changes, is the liability insurance policy, it recommends we have a $300,000 minimum liability, up to $5 million liability insurance, which we do. That was really the only choice.
Okay. Any questions or comments or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion by Michelle, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jill. Motion by Michelle, seconded by Jill to approve policy 2262 with the revisions as noted. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is 3220.01.
Okay, so tag changed really big time this year. In fact, spent a lot of Christmas break in this first week of school going through the new tag applications. So this policy is just basically to reflect what the legislation is. There's no big ideas there.
And just for clarification, if anybody listening, it's Teacher Appreciation Day.
Thank you. We love our acronyms.
Any questions or comments or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Wiley, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Dave to approve policy 3220.01 with the revisions as noted. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next is policy 1230.
So this one is just a policy that needed updating that basically says, I will let you know if we have any staff, current or former, who committed any criminal activity, especially as related to students. It also says that any legal expense that exceeds, I think, I put in there $10,000 at a time would be reported to you as well.
I hope we get to use that one a lot.
I don't. I'll talk to you anytime you want to talk. It just usually means that's not good news.
Wow.
Any questions or comments or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Wiley, seconded by Joel to approve policy 1230. All those in, with the changes as noted, all those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next, we have our last group.
Last group, so these all deal with possession of weapons. This isn't any new thing, this is just something I needed to update that I didn't get to when they changed the law about concealed carry and things like that. All this says is that possession of firearms or weapons by a visitor is prohibited unless they legally may possess it and you folks as a board have approved them to be able to carry it on school property.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Wiley, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Dave to approve 16, 17, 32, 17, 42, 17, and 57, 72 with the revisions as noted. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next, we have new business. First item is conflict of interest.
So this is something you probably should have been formally doing, even though David has done it himself for most things, since he has a family member who works with us. This is just basically something as we've gone through some different training recently with auditors and ISBA, even that they recommended that we just do this annually for anyone who sits on the board and might have any opportunity to have any conflict of interest, whether they have a family member work here or they're involved with a business for whom we may contract with or have the opportunity to contract with. It's just one of those protections things. So nothing's new, it's just something we've been doing and we didn't.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Wiley, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Michelle. Motion by Wiley, second by Michelle to approve the conflict of interest documentation for Dave Hill. All those in favor announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next, we have the approval of the 2026 IRS mileage rate.
So IRS upped the mileage reimbursement rate from 70 cents to 72.5 cents, and we just have to stay up with what the IRS
I'll make a motion.
All right.
to approve that.
Motion by Wiley, is there a second? Seconded by Michelle. Motion by Wiley, second by Michelle to approve the 2026 IRS mileage rate.
At our church finance meeting last night.
Did you? All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. And we have the approval of a resolution to move education funds to operation funds on a monthly basis.
So typically, historically, we have been around 7 to 8% of a transfer from education to operations. Looking at the property tax and how, what its impact on us would be, as well as trying to get our education funds stronger so that we can continue to pay people what we want to pay them. If you remember, last 6 months, we throttled that way back to 2%, $21,000 a month, which is really low. So far, we're doing okay with it. We are going to keep watching it. We might come back to you and say we need to increase that. I think we can make it. Again, this just tries to help keep our education fund as strong as possible so that we can compensate, because our operations fund comparatively has a little more wiggle room. But we've done a lot to try to take as much pressure off education as we can. So we're just going to continue to monitor it and make sure that our appropriation stays healthy. We took it kind of down to the wire this year. I mean, we made it just fine, but it was right at the target. So we'll keep monitoring, but it's what I think in working with Chad that we need to keep trying to do to try to be in as good a shape as we can moving forward.
Any questions, comments, or motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Wiley.
Second?
Seconded by Jill. Motion by Wiley, seconded by Jill to approve the resolution to move the education funds to operation funds on a monthly basis, January to June of 2026. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next, we have the approval of donations.
So I want to thank Marco Developments. I've talked to you a little bit about the Luxido projection system that we're really excited. I think we started installing it in December. I don't know if it's actually up there right. I don't think it's up. Is it going?
They played it at the girls' basketball
Oh,
game
did they?
last week. That's pretty cool.
But thank them for their $10,000 donation for that, for part of that system. Again, it does a 3D projection on the gym floor of the students, and kind of like the big call out, roll out, walk out, whatever you want to call it. And I know they have fun doing their green screen, do all their posing and that's really exciting.
For any who don't know who that is, that's Mark Lamont.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I did not know who it was.
Okay, Mark.
All right, any questions, comments, or motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by
Second
Michelle,
that.
seconded by Wiley. Motion by Michelle, seconded by Wiley to approve the donation. All those in favor, announce by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved 6-0. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
So just a reminder that Monday, January 19th is Martin Luther King Day, and we do not have school that day, as long as we don't have any snow days between now and then. I will tell you as a board, I have been hit up to try to make sure that 2 hour delay can happen on Tuesday morning, because like I said, the IU National Championship game.
I don't know what time I'm going
I do want to say, that's exciting for Indiana, no matter who you root for normally, it's exciting for Indiana, it's a great story.
It's quite a story.
So wish them the best. February 9th is our third Labor Day. That's our Legends Day for our gentlemen who live and die by the Super Bowl. So no school for students, PD for staff. This is School Board Appreciation Month, so I want to thank you guys for doing your all the things you do for basically nothing, sitting and reading 250 pages of policy in your favorite time. And then I usually come in January and I kind of have a word of the month, and I know we've been here a little bit already, so I'm not going to say here a whole lot longer, but my word this year is renew. It's just really going to be a time of looking back and revising and reworking things and moving forward and kind of doubling down, looking at what we've been doing. It's, you know, after you do something a few years, you think things are getting better. It is getting better, but I think we need to come back, look at it again, make bigger goals, better goals, revise our goals. And so renew is my word this year, but I'm trying to just keep it. Maybe renew ourselves too, right? Yeah, rejuvenate ourselves. And good luck to all the winter sports. I know we just had the wrestling team do a good job up at state, and they're wrestling tonight with their throwback, which is fun. I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but I think they're going to wear some of the old style. I don't know where they got them, singlets with tights. Somewhere Tim or someone found an old Decatur High School wrestling varsity jacket. It'll be super fun. I'm sure they're doing it up big in the annex. So that'll be a good time. That's all I have.
That's it? Okay. Other matters to come before the board? Anything, Wendy?
I did
I'm
have a
sorry.
one
I'm sorry,
pager.
board member public comments. I didn't move on to that one.
Okay.
Sorry.
I did have just a one page. The first two, the wireless communications device, that probably will happen, and it has quite a bit of support for where the students are prohibited to having any wireless communication with them during the school day. You need them just not allowed to come in at all, or if it does, there has to be a place that's where they're kept for the day. So that would need to be determined if that's so be it. There's also another statement about teachers using wireless in their classes. That all has to be school equipment, district equipment. If they, it doesn't prohibit, but it has to be school equipment. Then the other one is talking about social ban of media accounts with kids, or for adolescents, there are stipulations would be to that during the school time. The last three I just kind of threw in there. I don't see that that's going to happen with any of those. The commercial advertising, that really has been talked about for maybe 20 years off and on, just a means to districts earning money. There was a time, a few years, where we really did start looking at how we could earn money, even like wind farms and that idea. But then the State Board of Accounts came in and said, no way you can do that. And then the last two. The last one I put on there because our district is involved with lobbyists, but Terry Spradlin commented on this in that meeting today and said he didn't anticipate that at all. So.
This one is a little bit, something that's upset with the superintendents because, again, with all the bills regarding education and the huge changes that they're putting forth in education in the last several years, this bill was put forth as public schools only. Charters could, privates could still join lobbying groups, but public schools could not pay to be part of a lobbying group for their own interests.
And I don't know if you knew this. Terry made a comment that this gentleman claims to be the very first charter graduate.
Oh,
This
okay.
Ireland.
Didn't know that.
I didn't.
Wow.
So, yeah.
There's a few concerning things. There's another one, which again, it's not all bad, but comes at a cost to us at a time I don't think we're going to get extra money. There's a bill to require schools to buy the add-on to our filtering system, which is often paid through our E-rate funds, that allows parents to choose the filter at home that their student uses when they're off school hours. Which, again, I can see if you want to throttle it down, it is extra money that we may or may not have. And so there's, just like the cell phone ban, a lot of the schools are asking, why are we doing this? What you did in 2024 is working.
So say, what is it, the expansion on that, or the change on that, I mean, it's already,
I don't know, and it's not getting a lot of positive traction among the superintendents nor parents as they are becoming more aware. And again, there's a part of me that says for elementary age and for middle school age kids, I get it a little bit. But once you start driving and, or playing sports and you don't drive, but you can keep it in your car, then I guess you need it, but don't drive and you have after school activities or latchkey or whatever, there's some legitimate issues that I think some parents are going to question. I really like, I'll be perfectly honest, the ban on social media. I don't know how effective it will be, but I think it's time we start fighting that fight that there are certain apps and things that certain kids at certain ages don't need. Yeah. So that one, I think, would solve a lot of problems if it's enforceable.
Another factor too, the session we're planning on ending at the end of February. So it doesn't give them a lot of time, and that hopefully is a good thing.
Yeah.
So they, keep us out of
You didn't think they'd have many education bills though, and they surprised us.
Well, I think they're always going to.
Yeah. 732 bills, I think I read.
Yes. But they only have, after tomorrow, they only have one more day next week for a bill to be able to be passed, so. And Monday being a holiday, that cuts it off, so it's just Wednesday of next week.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting.